All right. As you can see again, no green screen. Anyways, welcome to Full Circle. I am your host, Chad, Cheddar Caveman on this channel and all things internet. Starting a couple minutes late. Apologies for that. Had a bit of a dog hair in my hair. Bit of a cooking snafu and some new house stuff. That's why I still don't have my green screen, so apologies there, fellow druids. But we do have, kind of hastily threw the description together on this episode, but we do have quite a bit since last week, the CID for the 12 factions of Christmas, or whatever holiday you prefer. Testing has happened, or the rules have dropped for that. And there's a healthy number of circle things. Sorry, my house is attacking me. Healthy number of circle things there, and so we're gonna basically spend this episode talking about that. We may have more on this coming up on this channel still, but I still want to go over my sort of preliminary thoughts on that first, and then we may have we will likely have some follow-ups on that as well, just because I think there's enough here that, like, fundamentally the way Circle is probably going to be played is likely to change. So pretty big deal. Let me pull up the document. So basically what is in this is several wolds and the Wold Wight, as we know, and Bradigus. So let's just start off at the top. So the Woldwatcher, the humble Woldwatcher, is on the CID. They made a couple really just minor tweaks so far to him. Dropped his points to 8, and he is now mat 6. Otherwise unchanged. So this is a pretty interesting change. So a lot of people have been really just begging for this model to get Shield Guard back, and that would be fine if that happened. I think that it was a strong benefit in Mark II. It would still be strong now. It may be that for the points you're paying and the amount of armor you're able to Shield Guard range attacks to, they just felt that was a little too much, or they may have just felt like this model has too many things going on for it. So in case you're not familiar with the Wold Watcher, we talked about it on one of my previous episodes. I would have to tell you which one, but I have talked about it. But we'll just go over it real quick. But basically, this model has a lot of people like, oh, he just doesn't really do a lot. And the thing is that he is a versatile model and a pretty hard to kill model. So he has 2 melee POW 12s initials and a range 10 POW 12 range attack, both of which have fertilizer, which is if you box a living or undead model with those attacks, it instead is removed from play, and you put a 3-inch force template on the table. It also has AD. It has Earth's Blessing, which is a pretty fantastic animus. Has the ability to become Armor 21. He has Open Fists, which can be very important. He has magical attacks, which can be important. Of course, he has Pathfinder and Stone Form. So you're talking about a model that has 24 boxes, RFP options, terrain generation options, a very relevant animus for your caster, ranged attack, melee attack, and has the ability to be buffed to do those things higher. So he is very versatile. 8 points is probably about right for what we're getting there. It's a model with ranged attack, melee attack, kind of do a little bit of everything. And that said, that a lot of people, when building lists, and I'm not necessarily any dissimilar, or I'm not necessarily not one of these people as well, want very specialized models. And so I think a model like the Woldwatcher is going to be very difficult to assess his place in a list. I think he does have one. I mean, I can see him as a one of. let's say you're playing a Bradigus or a Baldur 2 or something like that. You've got a model that can sit down in a zone. You will have to dedicate as many resources to it as most heavies, just given its stats. I mean, 24 boxes is getting close to some of our Warpwolves. It's only off by 3 from a Stalker and no more than 6 for any of them. So, and then it's armor 21. Yeah, and its defense is nothing special, but there's a lot of things that just don't want to deal with armor 21. Like I said, usually that's the value where you need to bring in the same amount of effort to kill it as you would a heavy. So that's kind of where it is. AD means that it's always going to be relevant. The gun, most turns you're going to want to be using Stoneform. So the whole thing with this is going to be knowing when to boost, if at all, on any of the attacks, or like when it's time to say, yeah, you know, I may sacrifice this model easily, but yeah. Since this is in the chat, I've seen this a lot of suggestions to change to Fury 3. I see where the requests are coming from. It's pretty clear to me from looking at the Wold design that heavy Wolds are Fury 3, light Wolds are Fury 2. And that's to sort of balance the fact that there's a lot of things that they do, that there's a lot of lack of downsides for them compared to living heavies. Basically, they don't frenzy, making some of the risk reward stuff a little lower, and that means they want less fury. And then Megalith is Fury 4 because he's a character, so it's sort of the equivalent of like in other factions how their characters are Fury 5 when most of their beasts are Fury 4. Megalith is Fury 4 when most are 5. Same with Woldwarden. So I don't see Fury 3 happening. I also don't see 1-inch melee happening. There's just the model doesn't really. There's nothing on the model that leads me to believe that that makes sense, and that's sort of the way they go. So there's a lot of suggestions. They're still in CID. There's a lot of directions to go. We're still taking feedback. So far, there have been no. This was the rules that they released as of last week when they happened. There's been one update yesterday. I imagine there'll be one tomorrow. So this will be old news for some of you by the time you watch it. But I don't see it changing. I don't see its Fury set changing. I don't see its range changing. I could see them doing something with Stoneform. I could see them doing a few other things, but I don't see Fury 3 being a likely change, and I don't see 1-inch melee being a likely change. So I'll be interested if they change anything. I actually kind of like where it is. I think the +1 mat is good, and I think the -1 point is good. I don't think it'll be in every list. I've liked the Animus for a long time now, and some of the other things with it. So, anyways, I don't want to get too hung up on any one piece in particular, but that's the changes to the Woldwatcher. The Woldwarden only received one change, but it's pretty important. He changed from 16 points to 14 points, and that is a really good change. I felt like this beast was very, very close when they changed him back in like January or something like that, January, February timeframe, to go from power and strength 15 to 16. I felt like it was already so close. Again, it's -1 fury compared to our living beast, but 16, power 16 is where purebloods are and Loki is, and it's more than a few of our other things. But there's no way to buff his damage, so it's sort of like, well, Geomancy is okay, but like most of the time I just want to pay 4 more points and get Megalith, and I probably don't need a second Geomancer in most metas. Sometimes it's still going to be true. Now he's cheap enough that I'm sort of like, is Megalith 6 points better than a Woldwarden? And I'm not sure that he is. I haven't played, caveat with all this, I have not yet been able to play any games with these rules changes. I've played at WITC over the past weekend, which I wrote on my blog, which is, I think, just at shuttercaveman.com. I shared it on Facebook. I wrote up the reports for that on my blog, but I meant I wasn't able to play any of these games. So, but at 14 points, he's not quite Megalith, but I can take almost half of another one of them, or I can take some of these other light bold options, and I think that's very good. You'll see in a little bit that I think his POW is in a respectable range. Again, think of it, he's so similar to what the Pureblood does that it's not even funny. So obviously, a spray is generally going to be better for a lot of reasons than most spells. But he sprays at 5 versus 6, so a little bit of a situational thing there. If cover's involved, the spray's going to be much better. If it's just concealment, you're sort of splitting hairs. And the spray is POW 14 on the Pureblood, it's POW 14 on the Pureblood. And there's no spells in Circle that are more than POW 13, and none of them are longer than range 10, so you're equal there. A little bit less POW, but spells are super flexible, right? The caster you bring makes a big, big difference, right? Rift, range 8, POW 13, AoE, Rough Terrain can hugely turn a game. We have 3 casters that have that spell. Battering Ram on Bradigus, being able to push a model out of his zone might be incredibly strong at times. Kruger 2 has 5 spells on his spell list, and the 3 that Wolds can cast are all phenomenal for Wolds to cast. Gallows is a spell that you just never want to cast with Kruger because it costs 3, and you generally want to boost to hit. If you need a Gallows, you want to boost the hit, and at that point you're like, why didn't I just cast TK? You can only TK once, but so first of all, for each Wold you have, that's +1 telekinesis possibly. It's +1 lightning storm, which it doesn't sound like that big of a deal until you realize that first of all, that Kruger's 9-inch lightning immunity means you can just put them wherever you want by using your own models as beacons, especially if you don't care about them. Or you can use druids. And also, now you could reliably put, let's say you have 2 Woldwardens, you could probably put 3 lightning storms easily out from that, and 4 in some matchups if that may be the right play. Super, super flexible with Kruger. TK Gallows is great. If nothing else, the pull is optional, and you're getting a boost of POW 13. In the other case, you're getting an AoE that's POW 10 as a hazard. It's great. I'll get to this in a little bit, but I think the Animus is more relevant than it's ever been, and that's because part of the problem is you can't move him out of the 4-inch AoE, and so that means he's standing there and just going to die because he's a 10-18. He only goes to 12-18. He's got 35 boxes, but if you're using him block line of sight, there's a good chance that he's going down if you do that. So you may have just traded 16 previous points. So now he's 14. So meaning that you're not losing as many points if you do need to do that. Second, I'll get to our shield guard a little bit down the road. So I think those 2 things make that Animus more relevant. Probably mostly with Bradigus where it costs 1 less. I'm just trying to think. Just the price that you pay, and I'll get to his melee. His melee output's not bad. He still has 2 initials. He can buy 3 attacks, and he has chain attack smite, which gives you a slam. And if you can position that really well, you can actually. So you basically aren't losing any attacks over any of the other models. Mat 6 is nothing to write home about, but it's not bad. He's magic ability 6, so that's sort of the thing with Megalith is the Animus is still really good. The healing is still really good. Weight of Stone on his fist is really, really good. And he's magic 7. So there are some reasons, and +1 POW. So there are some reasons to take Megalith. I've been doing some mental debates is he 6 points better than a Woldwarden? And I'm not sure. He might be, he might not be. But let's keep moving forward. So the humble Wold Guardian, 2 changes to him. He dropped from 17 points to 16 points, and he also gained a point of strength, which brings his fists up to power 18. I kind of feel like this is sort of where this model kind of always should have been, or pretty much should have always been since the advent of Colossals. I kind of felt, way back in Mark 2, pre-Stormwall, and I was kind of a newer player, but I did feel like you could kind of trade. At POW 17s, it's not great, but like you could kind of use them and kill heavies, especially if you could get any, constant, incidental damage out on them. I felt like in most lists it was enough, right? If you brought, there's an old Morvana 1 list that I think I actually stole from Pagani that I played, and it had 2 Wold Guardians in it, and they were great. They did exactly what they needed to do. They were very hard to kill, nigh impossible, which is a little bit of a change. And but they did enough output, and then they had enough utility, and they did enough other things that it was great. So going up to power 18 means now him, along with some other changes, I think now he's in the category where if you need a heavy hitter in that's a Wold, and you don't want to recant, or for whatever reason bring Megalith, who sort of now lives between the Wold Guardian and the Warden. He's got more utility in the Warden, and he hits a little harder. He doesn't quite hit as hard as the Guardian. Kind of lives in the middle, but he costs more, and yeah. But the Guardian, I think, going up to power strength 18, and then there's one more change we'll talk about down the road, means that you can now bring a Wold list, or create a Wold list that has the ability to crack armor. It's not going to be exactly like the living lists in how it does it, or necessarily like how efficient it is at doing it. And I haven't really done like a ton of math on it yet, but I think at 2 POW 18s you're starting to get comparable to the output of Stalker, Feral, Getorix for sure. And I may do some more checking on that. I was going to kind of do some live here real quick, but the site I usually use is loading kind of slowly, so I don't think we'll be doing that. But the thing is now able to put damage out, and at the same time be armor 20. So if we look real quick, it finally loaded. Let's talk about a standard Ironclad. So good old fashioned 12, 18, 30 boxes. According to the site I use, you've got about a 31.5% chance that a Wold Guardian will kill it. And then if we turn that into a Stalker, it's at around 47.6. So Stalker's still going to be a little bit better at it, but he's also costing you more points. And the defense is certainly going to matter here. The one thing this site also is not factoring in is that the math actually does change really, really considerably with the fact that the Wold Guardian has knockdown fists. So, the Guardian, if the Stalker hits on that first attack, he's got to roll 6s the whole time. If the Guardian hits on that first attack, he's automatically hitting the rest of the time, and that means the math gets much, much better. Since if you don't have to hit, it's I don't have any way to factor that in, but yeah, once you don't have to hit with an attack, you're looking at more in the like 80% range of being able to kill the model. So it's not exact math, so don't quote me on any of that, but the Wold Guardian is able to put out damage, significant amount of damage. It's very good. It's tanky, armor 20, defense 9, 35 boxes makes it very, 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 very tanky. The Animus is still going to be very situational. I haven't played enough Wold Guardians to really speak to it to begin with, but I don't think it's likely to come up too often. But it is there. I think steamroller scenarios are more and more scoreable. So like the more movement pieces I have, the better I feel, just in general. So I don't hate it for that reason. But like only being Fury 3, I know it only costs 1, costs 0 with Bradigus. But like I'm still a little pressed to like, because you can't use it in run, which means you kind of can't. You can't engineer those angles that you sort of need, and then he's only speed 4. So, a lot of people are decrying it. I don't think it's a big deal. The models is if you go back to Mark 2, the Feral had Bang of Chaos, which was an animus I literally never used, and it was still the right model for some lists because I didn't care what his animus was. I wasn't taking for his animus. I wasn't going to use his animus. I was just going to use him to do a lot of damage and be a little tankier at armor 18. So I feel kind of similar here. Like if the animus doesn't really get used, I don't care. As long as the rest of these rules stay, I really, really like this piece, especially at 16 points. I think that's like given the like extra rules, the fact that it's war based, so forth. I think it's very, very good. And of course, if there's questions as I'm going along, I'll do my utmost to answer them. But let's continue on. So we have Bradigus Thorle the Runecarver. He was slightly tweaked between week initial post and update 1. We're not quite into week 2 yet. Really, the only things that changed for Bradigus are they did give him damage type magical on his weapons. So now the rocks he throws and hits you with in melee are magic. And Mystic Wards was changed. So the way it reads now is enemy animi and enemy upkeep spells on models in his battle group that are in his control area immediately expire, while within 5 inches of a model in this model's battle group in his control area. When an enemy casts a spell, increase the cost by 1. So this changed from, it used to be in Mark 3, it was an upkeep that went on a single model, but it also would prevent upkeeping spells and casting spells. And this version costs 2 compared to the old version that was 3, and the upkeep version that also costs 2. So it's a very corner case ability. I mean, the one thing it definitely does do is keeps your battle group from being debuffed. You have to activate Bradigus first, but like you're not getting crippling grasp, you're not getting speed penalties. Like there's just a bunch of offensive spells that your models are never going to have to worry about, right? Or even sometimes damage assisting spells, things like Parasite and such. So it's good for that. I wouldn't say that comes up a ton. And then the other ability is sort of like the Wold Weird and Brenos' Animus, where it increases the cost by 1, but it doesn't increase the cost of upkeeping spells by 1. It doesn't, and it only can be 1 per spell, and you have to be within 5 inches. So I think it's still extremely corner case. I would like to see it be, and I think some of these sentiments have been echoed so far, but I don't know if the power level of Bradigus would be off by doing this, but there's been a lot of comments that it should be closer to Lamentation, and I agree. I think the fact that you have to put a model within 5 inches, the fact that it's not an upkeep, both mean that it can be a little stronger. And obviously Lamentation doesn't remove spells from your battle group, but this kind of like that's sort of not going to come up all the time, and he doesn't really have another like utility spell. This is sort of it. So I think it could be a little stronger. I think it could be stronger and cost 3 Fury and not be an upkeep. So we'll see where it goes. Small change to him. I think the sort of splash changes of the Wolds getting better actually is what makes the biggest deal for him. So I don't have a ton to say about Bradigus. I do think I'll be playing him with some of these changes, or at least testing him. I think he does some things that might now be answers to a lot of what we're seeing out there that Circle's having trouble with. So I like the fact that Wolves have changed. The Mystic Ward change is like headed in the right direction, but it needs... I don't know if it needs to be better, but like his spell list sort of has... I actually do kind of like the offensive spells, but I want his playstyle to just be a little more interesting, just a little more. And I don't know if it's a Mystic Ward change. I don't know if it's like either Battering Ram or Rift being replaced with something else. But I look through, and the thing is, he already has Synergy and a move. So he has Synergy, which is a damage output and accuracy buff, a pretty good one. He has a feat that moves models 5 inches, so now he's got a threat range extender. He's got anti-magic in Mystic Ward. So what does he have left that he can do? You can't really give him more movement stuff with a feat like that. You can't really give him more offensive output with spell like Synergy. Pardon me. You can't. So you have to give him something that's like very utility, and I don't know if I've thought of utility spells that make more sense than like the 2 he has, without really digging. So yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what they do with him. I would like him to become a little bit more dynamic. That's really all. Because he's strong, I think, and you can sort of make him interesting to play by doing a few things. But like, it's hard. Like, it's hard to make him super compelling. Other than like using Synergy, using his beatback. I would also like to. It would be nice, I think, if his gun were not D3 shots. It's only range 8. It's power 13, which is significant, but like D3 is bothersome enough when it's on things that aren't warlocks, and like, yeah, I don't know. I'd rather it was just like rate of fire 2. But anything that's D3, most of the competitive players are going to say they'd rather it wasn't variable. So that's fine. But let's move on. All right, now we're starting to get into the big deals. So, still a model that exists. The Blackclad Stoneshaper was enhanced to add a 4th magic ability that is a star action called Earth's Power. It is ranged command, and just for reminders, this command is 5. Target friendly faction construct Warbeast. If the Warbeast is in range, it gains +2 strength this turn. Sorry, something. So all of the things I just talked about with respect to Wolds are completely enhanced by this guy. This is what we thought this model had on him when he released in July. This is what Circle players have been begging for probably since, I don't know, 2012 at least, probably longer. This means that Wolds now can viably compete in a list with living models for cracking armor. I don't think they're still not quite going to have the same amount of output because of the different furies, because of a few other things, but and Primal is +2 mat, so like there are reasons to play both. But this is huge. Those Woldwardens I was talking about only being power strength 16 go up to 18. So now you're talking about, again, that's the damage output, that not the mat, but the damage output that you're getting pretty close to with a Primal Pureblood. The Guardian I just mentioned goes up to power 20, which is, again, that's going to scale pretty similar to a Stalker that has Primal. It's not exact, but it's going to be close. It also means that some of these lights are able to start getting in a little more damage than they were. The Woldwatcher and the Wold Wight that we talked about, both, it really skews their numbers a lot and in our favor. But it's not nothing, right? Like, this is a model that is killable. It's a 13/13 with 5 boxes. It goes up to 15/15 if it can touch a wold, or sorry, construct. And but it's very good, right? Like now I'm sort of like, I need these 3 guys painted yesterday. That's an exaggeration. But as soon as these changes are about to go live, I'm going to be very excited to start putting those into lists. I think their testing that I'm seeing from people shows that it's pretty spot on. I think it makes that piece extremely flexible. They have a heal, they have fury management, they have this +2 strength. And the thing about it is you're going to have to pick which one you want to do any given turn. So I think that sort of reins it in a little bit. Rather than, I think that's, in some ways I think that's better than another model being released. Like, you know, a Blackclad Wold strength enhancer dude, man. Trademark. And the reason is because this guy is going to have to choose. Am I managing fury? Am I spraying some dudes? Am I buffing strength? Am I repairing? And sometimes you're going to need to repair because damage output, if your body's out on a wold, is crap. So I think it's very, very good. I think that the point value is probably fine. I think everything I've seen so far and how I feel about it is this is the rule this model really always should have had. So I'm really, really excited about it. I think it really puts... There's a lot of lists now that can exist that couldn't before. So like I've started to now consider building a Kruger 2 list that maybe just has, even before, Megalith and some Woldwardens, or just some Woldwardens, or 2 Woldwardens and a Guardian or something. That was something that was previously going to lead to me having matchup issues, because I was not going to be able to answer some of the things I wanted to, so I could have put all those things on a list, but like if the armor value going over a certain amount, I'm just done. Nothing I can do. So, and then of course, like enhancing the Wold-centric casters like Bradigus and Baldur 2 to be a little more well-rounded, again, for the similar reasons, I think is really good. This model's great. It fits into 2 of our theme forces that exist, or one that exists and one that's about to exist, so he's in Secret Masters, so that gives you one like Blackclad-centric way of playing. And Pagani put out a list that does it. If you take a look at his Insider. And then also Bones of Orboros, of course. I think you're going to see basically you sort of start the list with 3 of these, or these might be your 3 free solos if you are really points tight and don't want to put a Blackclad in there for some reason. Sorry, I can't say Blackclad anymore. Wayfarer. Just a great change. Just a great change. I'm really excited for what this is going to do. And I think it's this change coupled with a few of these point reductions that are really... it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing somewhere like 50% to 70% of circle lists are going to heavily feature wolves after these changes. So, and then finally, the last but certainly not the least, we have the Wold Wight. So I'm going to go full stats on this one because it's brand new. And it's extremely unique. So it is a Circle Light Warbeast. It is Speed 6, Strength 6, Mat 5, Rat 4, Defense 13, Armor 15, and 2 Fury. FAU, 5 points. It's on a medium base. It has 14 damage boxes. They're fairly evenly spread. 1 less in mind. It's, of course, a construct. He has Pathfinder. He has Fire's Fury, which is the rule on the Fire Eaters, which says he gains +5 armor and against fire damage, and if he is suffering the fire continuous effect, he cannot become knocked down, and he gains boosted attack and damage rolls. And he's also a shield guard, so I don't have to go over the rules for shield guard. And then his Animus, which we knew before, is Spontaneous Combustion. It's a 1-cost range stealth spellcaster, and models within 2 inches immediately suffer the fire continuous effect. Note, it's important that it's the model itself as well, so I don't know if you're really going to want to cast this with your Warlock too often, but... and then he has 1 1-inch range, power 10, continuous fire attack called Lanterns. I'm told in testing he originally had 2 of these, and they were higher power, and so he's already been toned down a bit before we even got a hold of him. He had steady when this was released. They cut that since Fire's Fury also has their knockdown. They tend to like to not have too many rules on a single model that are similar. It just gets confusing. So, and he costs 5 points, I think. So, yeah. Okay. This guy, I've not gotten to play him. I'm very excited to see what he does. He's basically Circle's version of a lesser Warbeast, only he's a light Warbeast. And that means a couple important things. One, he's on a medium base, and there's some benefits and detriments to that. Mostly benefits, like no tramples. And it also means I just blanked the name of that rule. The rule that allows warlocks to leech a fury per dead warbeast. You can't do that with lessers, or units, but you can do them with these guys, which is probably corner case, but important in some lists. Being able to add a few small point models into lists that you can get fury back from can be kind of a big deal. They're not characters, that can be a big deal. It means they're included in all but Devourer's Host for theme forces. Shield Guard is a big deal. So sort of the fit they're going for here is that it should be a model that has defensive abilities, but if you ignore it, it also can do offense. So Fire's Fury means that it sort of works like Shredder actually used to with Rabid. So you'd force it once, and it would get boosted attack and boosted damage rolls, and it's also Mat 5. And I think it was also POW 10. So like those things are all very similar. And then it gets boosted attack and damage rolls. So if it doesn't have to charge, you can spend 1, and he will get his initial attack and buy 1 more that are both fully boosted. If you can somehow engineer a free Animus, he can do 1 more of those. But again, then he's got to pay for the charge sometimes, so back down 1, but a free charge is back up to 1. So like, you can kind of get those things out. Also, if you have more than 1, you can sort of position them so that one of them can light the others, or some of the other ones on fire as well. So, super interesting piece. I think the Shield Guard is a really good thing. Like a 5-point Shield Guard is fantastic, and I think that without it, his niche might be much narrower. I think you'd still see him in some lists, but I think the Shield Guard means that there's a few more lists you'll see him in. It also puts him in a place where he's comparable to like the just blanked on it, the Ogre and Boker, who honestly still has some value in lists because he sort of punches a lot harder if you engineer correctly. But this guy being faction and being available in like I said, everything but Devourer's Host, I think is a big deal. I think he could be a pretty big boon to some of the Wold lists that exist. So Bradigus strikes me immediately. Synergy taking it up to Power Strength 13 potentially, and Mat 8, and then boosted. Really, really good. Bradigus also makes his Animus 1 less, so it's another really good place for it. I think there's just some other lists that are going to want Shield Guards. I think some of that, that Kruger list I was sort of talking about, I think there might be a fit there. I mentioned the Woldwardens with their forests. I think a couple of these, like sitting behind those, is now really interesting. Sort of in the same way that the Cloud Wall with Secret Masters and putting the minion models back there is. You sort of, let's say I take 2, two Wold Guardians, and they're sort of here, and then you put the maybe 4, depends on the caster, 4 of these guys back here. Well, or sorry, I said Guardians, but I meant Wardens, Wold Wardens, and they have their Animus up. Well, now you can spread this damage around, because most of the time you're not going to kill one of these just from a single shot. They're pretty squishy, but I don't at armor 15. I think most of the time with 14 boxes, I can probably take 2 shots from most guns. So now you kind of spread around the damage that the Warden's going to take, and it keeps standing there, right? And then, yeah, maybe some of these Wolds aren't super effective, but they're there. And that's flexible, right? You need to know for your list like what to do. So 1-inch melee is nice. That means speed 6, 3-inch for the charge, and 1-inch melee puts him at a 10-inch threat. That's very respectable. I think the fact that it's boosted to hit with the fire is going to be big because you're talking Mat 5, and now you can go, you're sort of reliably hitting defense 14-15. Obviously, the fire is going to have some incidental like spillover damage, so the reason they're 5 points is they're very, very squishy. At 13-15, you can one-shot them with a lot of things. Dice -2. You're not really going to do it with like a Ravager type model, but a Bane Warrior hits on 7s and does on a charge, dice -2, does like 12 damage on average. So like it's pretty conceivable that a single Bane Warrior could kill one of these. So I think their point. So if they were more survivable at all, I would tell you that I think that they're actually probably too good. The fact that they are not, and they're sort of a very they're a very interesting piece. They can be played a lot of ways. You can bring a few of them. Make sure you have shield guards that have some offensive output. If they, if you don't shoot at them, they could just have, with Bradigus, where you can bring several of them and sort of leverage synergy to get more damage out of them. And there's just a lot of options with them. Really, I think they're very good. I think they're a piece that definitely is something that Circle wants, that they didn't really know they wanted. They have some pretty solid. They have some pretty interesting play into units. So like being able to light things on fire is sometimes sort of like you're like, oh great, it's on fire. Maybe it might take a power 12 next turn, but there are some things that can be really important for, like lighting their caster on fire can be really big. Lighting things like I believe things like shield wall infantry that can still be really, really big for. Just being able to spread around a lot of fire potentially could be really good. They also do it with their fists, so yeah. I kind of like this idea that Circle's getting more elements. I sort of talked about this before. We have a few things that do lightning. We have like a couple things that do cold. The two of those things are the same thing, being the fulcrum. So we've got like the Winter Argus that does the cold thing a little bit, and then we've got the fulcrum that does all three, and we've got the Krugers that are lightning focused, the Storm Raptor that's lightning focused, and then you go back to we don't have any fire other than the fulcrum. So I really like that we're starting to kind of get more elemental type attacks. I hope that we can kind of focus it a little bit better, or just over time sort of get more pieces that synergize with it, right? But it's really cool. I like that we're expanding in that way because it feels very appropriate for Circle, I think. So, but the Wold Wight I think is a super compelling piece. At 5 points, it's really good. Like I said, when you use shield guard, it's good. It has some output that's going to be good. I think it gives you some flexible options in lists. I could see. Bear with me here for a moment. I could potentially see doing something like the Wold Wight in. This is going to be out there, but like I've sort of at times had this problem where a couple casters, Grail in particular for me, I never really know what I want his battle group to be, but I know I want to make sure Grail always has access to some Fury. But I don't really want to spend points on his battle group. I mean, I know I can, like his feat's pretty good for things like Stalkers or Getterix or trying to kind of get some assassinations, but he's really the most of his rules benefit his infantry more than they benefit anything else. And I could see, and this is sort of a crazy idea, so it may not be good, but I could sort of see playing 6 of these, which is 30 points, which I think is just like one more than his Warbeast points. You play 6 of these in your Grail list, and that means that you will never have less than 6 Fury available to Grail at any point ever in the game. And Grail is actually surprisingly tanky as the game continues because of the fact that the fact that he has Storm Ranger. So you put Storm Ranger on him, and now you're talking about a 15, 18 that can't be targeted with combined ranged or melee attacks, can't take back strikes. He's speed 7. He's got a lot of movement. He's got sidestep. He's got a lot of stuff. So like, and then he can have transfers if you can keep 1 or 2 of them alive. I mean, like, maybe that's not the right play, but you know, maybe I bring like 2 actual war beasts and like 3 or 4 of these or something. But like, and now he's got shield guards, so now some of his infantry, you know, before you want to, now I want to support infantry. Like, okay, well, I can keep more eggs safe. I can keep some death rolls safe. I can keep some skinwalkers safe. Spread some damage around. Again, just a very interesting potential way, the potential thing that a beast that cheap with utility really does. So. That's kind of how I feel about the Wold Wight. Take a look, see if I have any questions. No. Well, I had a comment from my teammate Francesc, who asked if we will see more Bradigus, and I sort of talked about him. I think yes, and I would say no if I wasn't planning to play him, and I feel like Dan Yount already kind of really likes Bradigus, so I think you're going to see more of him. But I don't... The other side of this is I don't think any of these changes are so like the troll changes, right? Like, none of these are so overwhelmingly strong changes that you're suddenly going to see people, like, flocking to Circle to play them. I don't think that Circle is moving in that sort of position. I think people who are interested in Circle may now, like, take the plunge. I think people who've been playing Circle are very happy. Like, they're not going to, like, move away from the game or move away from Circle. So as a result of that, I don't think, like, and I don't know that Bradigus is going to just, like, swell in popularity. We don't have a JVM that, like, everything, you know, some player does, he does. That's the sound of the husky scratching her neck, by the way. Sarsha, come here. Come here. Let me see if she's going to come over real quick. Sarsha. There she is. Alright, anyways, that's your Warp Husky for the week. So that's sort of my thoughts on the CID stuff. You know, I expect that probably tomorrow, because we didn't see an update today. Let me double check, make sure I'm not crazy, but I don't believe that there was an update today at all. No update today. Oh, sorry, Sorsha. So yeah, I imagine we'll see more updates today, so there'll probably be more with this to talk about next week. I think I'll probably start talking more like lists as time goes on and I sort of think about it. We're also expecting some Theme Force drops coming up in September. I think it'll be toward the end of September, but those things are coming as well. So as usual, I would like to... Sorsha likes to be on the stream. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I, of course, would like to thank my sponsors real quick. Muso Minis, I keep posting videos there, and they keep letting me, so that's great. They also have some pretty cool products, so take a look. I know they've got a lot of new things coming out pretty much every week, so that's great. And, of course, Griffin's Painting, without which I would have a boring gray army of boringness, and instead I have a beautiful circle army of beautifulness. And if you want beautifulness in your army, you should go to griffinsrootspainting.com or Facebook/griffinsrootspainting, or just search for Griffin's Roots Painting. It's probably the easiest way. And take a look at her work. And if you too need beautiful models, you should contact her. So that'll be it for this week. Like I said, hopefully more coming soon to talk about these things. And thanks for watching.